So I kind of feel like talking about a lot of Canucks stuff today, and as today's show goes on, you're gonna see more and more as to what I mean about that. So firstly, we're talking about the biggest thing that was mentioned yesterday during the, Hockey Night in Canada? I don't really know if it's Hockey Night in Canada. It was Tuesday yesterday, so it shouldn't have been, right? Regular Sportsnet broadcasting, I guess you could go out there and say. It was between Toronto and Columbus, and we had ourselves the intermission panel, which saw Elliotte Friedman step up onto the plate and say something pretty significant. Now, for Toronto, heading into yesterday's contest against Columbus, one of the bigger stories about their team was the fact that Jake Muzzin was injured against Montreal. Now, that sucks. We wish Jake Muzzin a very speedy recovery. We wish for this guy to return in full health. But the problem with Jake Muzzin right now is that we don't really know whether or not he's actually banged up enough to go on the LTIR or not. He left the hospital the other day from Montreal, which is good to see, but still, we don't really know whether or not he's in game shape yet, at least at the time of me recording this audio. But because of that entire conundrum, Friedman went out there yesterday and said this: if Kyle Dubas is going to be able to use his LTIR space, I think that's going to make things really interesting for him. I'm on the JT Miller train. And this one comment got everybody on Twitter just so amped up because holy crap, Elliotte Friedman just went out there and dropped a bomb that the Leafs will likely go after JT Miller from the Vancouver Canucks should Muzzin be on the LTIR for an extended amount of time. Now this actually works out perfectly, like very perfectly. Muzzin has a $5.6 million cap hit while JT Miller has a $5.2 million cap hit. If the Leafs put Muzzin on the LTIR in the playoffs, or until the playoffs I should say, because yeah, cap circumvention, you know, it works like that, Miller fits perfectly. And now, you take a look at the potential options and what a trade package could look like, whether or not the Leafs could go out there and do this kind of thing. Everybody and their mother has an opinion about Miller and the Leafs because, hey, this is the biggest Canucks trade chip out there, and this is the biggest NHL team out there. So, let's go over a few opinions that some NHL people have gone out there and highlighted as to what Miller and the Leafs could potentially, look like, starting out with Patrick Allvin. Firstly, this is a general comment he made about a week ago. I'm not going to trade a player just for the media. JT has been our most consistent and best player. Now, this was something that was, again, a few days ago, but it does kind of go out there and say just because the media says that a guy is going to be traded does not mean we're going to go out there and trade a guy. Now, what this quote also says isn't necessarily that JT Miller isn't going to be moved at all. Allvin is not saying that Miller is an absolute untouchable and that he's going to stay on the Canucks till the end of his contract next year. It's just that for the sake of making a trade, he is not going to do that if it's based off of the media and what all their speculation is going out there and highlighting, So let's just start off this entire conversation with that idea. This is what Dan Riccio said on Twitter, just going to say that JT Miller is exactly the type of player the Leafs need to win in a playoff series, so they'll probably just go for another small-ish skill guy instead. Now, he's being facetious and joking around with that tweet, but Miller is indeed one of these players that, when I think about what the Toronto Maple Leafs could use a little bit more of, JT Miller and his profile does come to mind. Now, they have been, the Leafs in general, scoring a little bit more greasier, in-tight, rebound-ish kind of goals compared to previous seasons. It's just, Miller is a guy that excels in so many different assets of goal scoring. He can dangle guys, he can go solo it from his own zone up until the opposing team's net, he can snipe it once in a while, he can battle along the boards once in a while, he can be a very versatile all-round offensive player, and he's been so rewarded as a member of the Vancouver Canucks with the amount of points that he puts up. And it's kind of why he is in this position where at $5-point-something million, he is seen as an absolute valuable piece to any potential team looking out there to acquire him. Now, if we go over to that potential acquisition, what could a trade look like for JT Miller? Well, I've seen so many people on Leafs Twitter specifically recommending just these weird trade proposals like, oh, it's going to be Luke Shen and Miller for Kerfoot and Hall. Like, it's going to go down like that. Like, no. Please, do not think about this like it's just your scraps, your garbage pieces that you don't want, thrown together to be a good enough package for Miller. Like, no, any Miller trade is not going to have Kerfoot as the number one piece coming back. It's not going to include Justin Hall. I've seen what y'all been saying about Justin Hall. I've seen how this guy's been playing. He sucks. And no, the Vancouver Canucks are not going to go out there and value Justin Hall in a trade for the best player on their team because of it. This is what Cam Robinson went out there and said, I'll be surprised if Miller ends up in Toronto, but if he does, please believe that Topi Niemela would absolutely need to be a part of the package. A legit A-level right-handed deep prospect is just what the doctor ordered in Vancouver. Now, Topi Niemela has been spectacular this season in the Finnish Liga. He has exploded out of nowhere. Okay, I shouldn't say out of nowhere. He has been good, but I think he's a lot better today than a lot of people thought he would be back when he was drafted in 2020. But it's Topi Niemela, it's Timothy Liljegren, it's other prospects you have. Rodion Amirov, by the way, that guy was diagnosed with a brain tumor earlier today, so very unfortunate for him. Hopefully he's able to go out there and recover properly. Really, really unfortunate news for sure. Just good that he's trying to go out there and stay positive about the entire thing. But there are indeed a number of younger players, younger prospects that the Leafs do have that the Vancouver Canucks should go out there and highlight if they do indeed trade Miller to Toronto. Those three guys, as well as, of course, a first-round pick, which is a given, and then maybe you have another roster player on top of that as well, because everybody has been kind of highlighting, okay, Miller is so gosh darn valuable that this is somewhat akin to maybe a Jake Chychrun trade price out there. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's just JT Miller, you're not going to go out there and get that much for him. Here's something I want to highlight as well to end off this video from my buddy Sheldon, also from the BCIT Radio Arts program. Before any JT Miller trade offer is constructed by other fan bases, so this is for you, Leafs fans, please consult this list of players Miller has outscored over the last 3 years and ask yourself what you would pay for them, because he should be worth just as much. JT Miller, over the past 3 seasons combined, has more points than Johnny Gaudreau, Mikko Rantanen, Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Kopitar, Karlsson, Tavares, Crosby, Stamkos, Gensel, Stone, Svechnikov, Yossi, Lindholm, Hedman, Nylander, O'Reilly, and Braden Point. 72 points in 69 games played when the Vancouver Canucks acquired him in 2019-20, and over a point per game in the playoffs. 46 points in 53 games when the team absolutely stunk. They got infected with the virus and were terrible in that season in the North Division. This year, he's over a point per game too. 53 points, 50 games played, on pace for an 85-point year. He's really good. This is an elite caliber player, and you're not going to acquire a player like this for Kerfoot and Hall. So Leafs fans, stop going with that, because he's worth more than that. And so, yeah, Jake Muzzin, eh? I get it, Muzzin is a super valuable piece to your team, and everybody knows how good he needs to be, especially when he's playing with Justin Hall. So, just like the Rodion Amirov thing, super unfortunate to see the collision against the Montreal Canadiens that other night, and seeing him go to the hospital and everything. You never want to see anybody go under those circumstances, but the fact is, it happened. And now the Canadiens, or not the Canadiens, no, not them, the Leafs have themselves a decision to be made if Muzzin does indeed go on the LTIR. And, you know, I get it, a lot of people were going out there and complaining about Vegas, Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, obviously Nikita Kucherov last year, and Patrick Kane back in 2013. These are the cap circumvention, quote-unquote, times when teams are allowed to go out there and do this because it's actually allowed under the rulebook. But Toronto fans, you guys might be getting your own taste of doing this kind of action too. Because if JT Miller goes over to Toronto and Jake Muzzin is healthy tomorrow, you're screwed. Like, you're not going to be able to go out there and use these guys properly because your team will be over the cap by a pretty significant margin. Now, the NHL season goes on until, like the middle of April, something like that, and then the season will stop and the playoffs will begin. We have however many freaking games left, like 30-something? Whatever it is. So if Jake Muzzin is indeed out from now until the start of the playoffs, he's going to be out for a while. And whether or not that trade-off is enough for you to say, okay, let's go out there and sideline Muzzin for a long time, get another player like a JT Miller or something, and we'll be on our way, that's up for you to decide. So talk to me in the comments, what do you think about JT Miller and the entire idea that Friedman dropped on all of us? If you're a Canucks fan, what do you want realistically for JT Miller? If you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, what would you give up for this kind of player? Do you even want this kind of guy on your team? Do you want anybody else other than JT Miller? Should you focus on other aspects of your lineup? Maybe defense? Who really knows? Let me know in the comments all your thoughts about this entire trade idea. Hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99. And bye.